do. We got some things to say. We're live on YouTube. Hello. Let's see if we can also go live on Instagram. Let's see if it works. Oh, look at that. Hello, Instagram. Hello, YouTube. Now, you all are being invited. If this is the first time you've ever seen me go live during one of these things, you all are being invited into a segment of the Lurie Daniel Favors Show, which is a show that airs live Monday through Friday on SiriusXM's Urban View, channel 126. That's where we are live right now. The only reason I'm going live on Instagram, and as opposed to just on YouTube, which I don't often do anymore, is because, well, one, mainly, and I don't often do it because Instagram is hard to share, but we got a whole lot of new friends. As I was telling people, I had some videos that went a little viral this weekend, so we got a whole lot of new friends. So Instagram, welcome. We do this every single day, at least Monday through Friday on days ending in Y, and you should just know that you are a part of an experience. I have you all on Instagram, which means you're not going to be able to really hear and see the clips that we play during this segment the same way my friends on YouTube can, or the way my friends in Urban View can hear. So if you really want the full experience of this, I encourage you to go to my YouTube channel. That's where you should be following me. But I'm just saying that, do with it what you will. It's just hard to share Instagram, so that's why we do this in a variety of spaces. But welcome, especially to the Instagram community, because y'all done blew up my numbers. Hi, it's a lot to get to, and I want to get to it as quickly as possible. Now, let me grab my newspaper. First things first, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this article because I described this way more in depth in the podcast episode. And for those of you who are new to me, you should just know that in addition to this show, I actually have a whole ass real job where I run a law center. But in order to get out the news, we have not only our Urban View channel 126, which we do on SiriusXM. We got the YouTube channel, but we also have a podcast called Lurie Breaks It Down. So for all of you who can't really get to SiriusXM, I do a condensed version of the stories we talk about here live every day. And sometimes an even more expanded version in the podcast. The podcast is called Lurie Breaks It Down. You can get that every single Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. and 2 p.m. The 6 a.m. segment, that is our moment of gratitude segment, because we sit, as I say every day to my audience, on this channel, we sit in what I call Black Talklandia. It's heavy conversation where we are trying to figure out how the world got to be so messy, and that can be a little heavy on the spirit. So every day we start with a moment of gratitude. That's our point of inspiration, to give us in the right mind, the right frame of reference, so that we can handle all the difficult news that we're going to get into in this show. And that airs every Monday for you in the podcast space at 6 a.m. So if you got your own personal wellness practices, feel free to just add this to it, or, just share it with a friend who does it. And then at 2 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday, we have the news content that breaks down. So we're going to give you the joy in the morning. You're going to praise the Lord and feel inspired. And you might, talk to Buddha or hear from Allah or engage in African traditional practices, because we ain't religious. We respect that everybody's got a way of connecting with the divine. Go with God, however you define it. So I just wanted, some of these stories I'm going to briefly skim through because I really want to focus on this white gang on white gang violence that has been taking place. Now, also YouTube, don't forget, this weekend on Saturday, I believe it is, we're going to have our members only engagement. Urban View, that's for you all as well. Now, really briefly, because we did not get a chance to talk about this as much last week, but I know that some of y'all may not be familiar with this country named Nepal, okay? Nepal. The people who live in Nepal, I believe they're called Nepalese. I'm not quite sure about that, and I wasn't able to Google it before I got on, but I just want to let you know there is a country named Nepal. It is in Asia, okay? Now, what you should also know is that Asian countries have been experiencing a lot of upheaval from Gen Z. In fact, the New York Times today has this entire 2-page article that talks about all the ways in which Gen Z is reshaping the entire political alignment in Asia right now. And I don't know if we've been talking a lot about this in the news media because, American news doesn't do a whole lot but focus on America. But you should just know that basically young people, Gen Z in Nepal, they had ordered that their social media websites, they were not going to be able to access their social media platforms the way that they traditionally used to. And so the young people was like, what you not finna do is that. And the reason they were very upset was because in Nepal, they have gross financial inequities, gross economic inequities. And in some of these Asian nations, the leadership is very, very old, like 70 plus. And Gen Z was like, nah, son, we ain't doing this with you. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of corollaries here. I need Americans to pay attention to what is happening internationally, because you got people showing you what to do. I'm just saying, you got people showing you what to do. Do with that what you will. But basically, I just want to read you a couple of clips out of here because it is absolutely fascinating as I destroy my microphone with my newspaper. One of the things that they said was that the young people do not have the same reverential attitude towards political leaders that their elders had. And there's this fascinating conversation about how the young people in Gen Z, who were largely poor, they were on social media watching rich Gen Z, who are the children of and the grandchildren of these political leaders, basically flaunting their shit. Basically like, oh, look at my new car, look at my new boat, oh, I'm flying here, I'm flying there. It's the soft life. Like they were doing the Nepalese version of that. And the young people was like, all right, hashtag Nepo baby, hashtag Nepo kids. And so then when the government was like, yeah, we're going to shut down this whole social media situation, them young people was like, the fuck you more. They was like, no, we're not doing that. And so they took to the streets. after 2 days of sustained protests, some of which was very violent and some of which was deadly. 50 people plus ended up killed. There were 1,400 people injured. But them young people was like, "What we're not doing this with y'all no more. We ain't." And then they wrote in the inscription, hold on, because they took over the Capitol. Let me read y'all what they wrote in the Capitol real quick. And then we're going to get into these other stories. They said, look, from now on, only Gen Z youth will be in this place. Corrupt leaders will be sent out of the country. Long live Nepal. Long live Gen Z youth. Now, I got a couple Gen Zs in my household, and they know that what you ain't finna do is start no revolution up in the Favors household. However, it's that youthful energy. And if you pay attention to the podcast today, I go through this article in depth, and we're going to hear from some of these Nepalese youth who are like, we don't have money. We can't afford housing. We don't have health care. We can't afford food. You going to give yourself a raise? Like, you going to be president for life? Oh, word? You going to be in political power and take our health care? Does this feel familiar? I feel like this should be familiar to some people. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. Maybe I had a weird dream and I thought that I was in Nepal. Anyway, that's a story that I cover much more in depth in the podcast episode. Make sure you check that out at 2:00. I just want to briefly say this part for those of you who have been paying attention. Remember when I told y'all, like early in my private practice, after I left corporate America, I went into private practice as an attorney. And one of my main area of focus was, yes, suing bad police officers who are brutalizing Black people and other people. But also one of my other focus outside of suing police was economic justice, right? So I was defending homeowners who were losing their homes due to foreclosure, helping people who are dealing with debt collection lawsuits. And one of the things that I pay attention to is financial markets and the way things are happening, because if you're not paying attention to financial markets, you're going to be very surprised when your mortgage rates go up or when financial things happen that can destroy what's happening in your community. There is a woman by the name of Lisa Cook. Lisa Cook is a Black woman, really amazing background, bio. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on her bio. I encourage you to look her up, but she is a Black woman who has accomplished what has been sort of like a holy grail for people in the economic spaces. She is a Federal Reserve governor. Now, for those of you who do not know, the Federal Reserve is basically a body. It's an independent body that really has a lot of impact on American financial policy. I'm not really going to get into it right now, but basically one of the main things they do is they set interest rates. Now, the Federal Reserve, because of the way that we got into a situation where you needed a Federal Reserve, they are supposed to be independent from the president. So the president ain't supposed to be like, I don't like the way the Federal Reserve is moving. We're going to cancel the Federal Reserve. We're going to fire the Federal Reserve. Now, you might not realize that because oftentimes Donald Trump is always talking about the Federal Reserve like he got the power, right? Like he the one that's in charge, like he the one that got the power. And he's always coming for this man named Jerome Powell. Now, we have talked a lot about Jerome Powell. I know that sounds like one of the blackest Black man names ever. Jerome Powell is not Black. Jerome Powell is white. Jerome Powell is the chair of the Federal Reserve. Now, beef. Donald Trump and Jerome Powell done had beef, or I should say Donald Trump has had a lot of beef against Jerome Powell because Jerome Powell is like, we're not cutting these interest rates. Your economic policies suck. You should stop doing all these tariffs. It's some bullshit. You destroying the economy. You ain't going to have us cutting the interest rates because if we cut the interest rates, that's going to fuck up inflation and we ain't doing that. Obviously, Jerome Powell did not say it in that way, but that's basically my interpretation of what he was saying. So Donald Trump can't fire Jerome Powell, even though Jerome Powell got the blackest name for a white man ever. Donald Trump can't fire him because of the way the Constitution and the rules around the federal, not necessarily Constitution, but the way the rules around the Federal Reserve are set up. He can't fire that man, but he really want to fire that man, and he wants to insert his people so that he can get all the rate cuts that he wants, even though he got the economic genius of like my toddler. I don't even have a toddler. Jesus, is that a sign my birth control may not be working? Somebody knock on wood. We ain't having no more kids, no more children, no more children. I believe in Planned Parenthood, and that is not the time. That was a Freudian slip. But he has the economic sustainability and the economic prowess of a toddler, someone else's toddler, because I do not have a toddler. Oh my God. Knock on wood. Somebody pray for me. We're not having no more kids in the Favors household. So anyway, why am I talking about Lisa Cook and why do I need people to keep her name out their mouth? All right, Lisa Cook, Black woman, member of the Federal Reserve. Donald Trump don't like her. And he don't like none of the Federal Reserve that he didn't put there. But right now he got somebody from the White House that he's literally saying, all right, I'm going to need you to go on leave from the White House and I'm going to install you on the Federal Reserve, because he's really trying to manipulate it, kind of the way that they did with the Supreme Court. And so he has been coming after Lisa Cook because they said that she's fraudulent. They said Lisa Cook, who ain't had to do nothing but be excellent her whole life. They said Lisa Cook lied on her mortgage documents. They said Lisa Cook committed bank fraud. They said that she said that her vacation property was her primary residence and that as a result of that, Donald Trump should get it to fire her, because the only way he can fire someone from the Federal Reserve who's not Jerome Powell is if there is cause. Now, what cause that would have to do with her job, I don't know, but this is the hook that they've gotten. And remember, this should feel a little familiar to you because they did the same thing to Maryland State Attorney Marilyn Mosby. They're trying to do the same thing to New York State Attorney General, Letitia James. He keep coming for black women, and this is the pathway that he's coming from. Now, as I said in the podcast, me and my husband had closed on a property a couple years ago. That shit is mad stressful. It's mad stressful. For any of you who have ever bought a house or any sort of massive asset like that, it is very stressful. You have lawyers, you have bankers, you have people who you pay to advise you because you don't know all the things. And I am an attorney. I still need attorneys to advise me because I don't know all the things about buying a house or buying a property. And when you sit in the closing where you sign the documents, you are not reading line by line. You might be signing 40, 50, 60 documents depending on the nature of the deal that you're at. And so you're not going to be reading line by line. You ain't got time. Number one, you got like half an hour to get this closing done. And then, so you don't even have the capacity. Lisa Cook has said from the beginning, I didn't tell them that was my primary residence. I told them that was a vacation home. But they say, no, you didn't. You told them it was your primary residence because you black women is fraudulent and we don't believe you anyway. And we know that you told them it was your primary residence so that you could get a discount on your loan. And come to find out, we learned over the weekend, that's a whole ass lie. Lisa Cook did tell the bank that this was a vacation home. Lisa Cook did tell the bank that she already had a primary residence. And now we got all this documentation coming out over the weekend that talks about the fact that basically leave her the fuck alone and keep her name out your mouth. Now, you would think that would be enough, but I'm watching the news this morning as I am wont to do, and I'm watching Squawk Box because, again, not because I like it, but because I need to know what they know about their money, because if I know what they know about their money, then I'm better prepared to handle my money and help us navigate ours. And what I'm watching on Squawk Box this morning is like the Andrew Ross Sorkins and the Becky Quicks. And there's another older white man who's on that show. He really pisses me off on a regular basis because I'm like, stick to the economy. Y'all wanted us to shut up and just dribble. Shut up and just do economy. Why you got to add your mouth to all these commentary? But basically, now they're saying, well, if Lisa Cook was really innocent, she should have said she was innocent from the beginning. She did. And if you accuse me of something, the burden is on you to accuse me and to prove that I did the thing that you accused me of. I just need y'all to keep her name out your mouth because you're fucking it up. Keep her name out your mouth. She's going to be in the Federal Reserve. And until something else comes out that is legally binding or in some way indicating that what she says is true and what the documents say is true is false, then keep her name out your mouth. But y'all keep coming for black women because, one, it allows you to avoid the fact that your economy sucks. Your economy is trash. And how trash is it? Oh, y'all done lost jobs in every single sector except healthcare. And you're about to lose a whole lot of jobs in healthcare because y'all just passed that big bitch ass bill that's basically going to cut Medicaid from everybody. You got hospitals closing in Republican sectors of Virginia. You got hospitals closing in Republican-led states. The rural community is in an uproar because they ain't going to have no healthcare. That's why y'all want to talk about Lisa Cook. Y'all trying to keep that black woman's name in your mouth so you can avoid talking about the foolishness that you have skeeted all over the economy. But we're not going to let you do that. Not here on the Lurie Daniel Favor Show. Watch this because they are really trying to railroad that woman. And that woman, quite frankly, the genius that she is, might be one of the few things hanging between us and complete and total economic disaster. Oh, and the other thing, here's another reason y'all need to keep her name out your mouth. The one she's being mostly investigated by is this white man by the name of Bill Pulte. And I got to use people's race for those of you who are new to this show, because we're in a moment right now of explicit racial hostilities and white Americans who are not a part of the righteous whites are really many of them in a space where they are claiming racial grievance. So if you're going to claim racial grievance, we're going to talk about you the same way you talk about every other racial group. So this white man, Bill Pulte, who is in charge of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, he the main one coming after her. And the reason this got me real hot this morning is because while I'm watching Squawk Box, this white man, Bill Pulte, going to tweet and name the reporters in Squawk Box talking about something. Well, if Lisa Cook was really innocent, why she ain't tell us that before? Not paying any attention to the fact that in Bill Pulte's own family, he conveniently ignores the fact that his mama and daddy done did some fugazi ass shit with their mortgages according to the reports. He got people in his family that done did some fugazi ass shit with their mortgages according to the news. So Bill Pulte, I'm gonna need you to handle your household, keep that woman's name out your mouth because what you got ain't a whole lot of nothing. Now, just need to get those little pieces of news out before we get to the most important part of this opening segment. Have y'all been paying attention to the white gang on gang violence that is happening right now? Again, because we live in an era where more and more white Americans who are very upset about like CRT and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and a bunch of whites who are very upset about their children coming home and reading all these books and learning all these things. And you got the Moms for Liberty who are very upset about their white children coming home and just being very, very, very confused about race and racism. And so those white parents have decided to organize into groups like the Moms for Liberty and the Proud Boys. And so right now, it's really easy to miss the fact that what happened with that man and the fact that he was unalived or murdered with the pew pew, apparently, y'all, this is it's white gang on white gang violence. I did not know a whole lot about this, as I'm sure many of you who are hearing about this for the first time are like, what is happening right now? But there is now additional reporting that seems to at least be opening up the media to questioning, was this something that, obviously we know it was something that came from the right. Like, we know that because of who it was that was arrested. But this is not some lone wolf situation. Now, I was not familiar with the term groyper, Groyper. I wasn't familiar with it. I've seen the little Pepe meme. Y'all know that the meme of the frog with the big red lips, and sometimes he's wearing a MAGA hat. That's the Pepe meme. I didn't know a whole lot about this until all of this happened. And so Forbes magazine, because Forbes apparently knows how to do reporting on white gang violence. You should do with that what you will. But Forbes magazine basically describes groypers, who are a part of a far-right political movement that really got its legs underneath it in 2019. And groypers, Groyper, these are people who follow Nick Fuentes. Now, you may not know a whole lot about Nick Fuentes, but Nick Fuentes, it sounds like a Latino name, right? If he's Latino, it's a white-presenting Latino. You would not mistake him for being other than having white ancestry. Maybe somebody a couple centuries back was in the slave quarters, but he's a white-presenting male. And he is somebody who is very, very Christian in the white Christian nationalist way of things. He's got those white Christian nationalist values, and he is to the extreme right. No, sorry, the extreme right. My right, not y'all's right. He is to the extreme right of a Charlie Kirk. Now, I need you to sit with that for a minute, because we've learned a lot about what Charlie Kirk was a part of, the conversations he was having. And tomorrow we're going to have a conversation about Black Christians. Beware the Black Christian of today. Because I just need Black Christians. We got to have another conversation, Black Christians. And that's going to be tomorrow. But there have been a lot of Black Christians in my timeline and others talking about how you don't serve the same Jesus as me if you were celebrating somebody's death. We got a conversation for you tomorrow. So just stay tuned. We're going to have to handle that tomorrow. But we have learned a lot about how that young man was really adept at helping to promulgate talking points that were very divisive, that caused a lot of harm, that caused a lot of danger. He was very instrumental in the destruction of diversity, equity, inclusion programs and platforms. I mean, he was doing the communication piece of white Christian nationalists, but he wasn't extreme enough. And apparently for the groypers, who are a part of like the Nick Fuentes crew, he was so not extreme enough that basically the groypers have been beefing with the Charlie Kirkers. So I don't know what their gang sets names are. Like, I know, like, for us, we got like Bloods, we got Crips, we got Pyru, we got all these sets and different groups within our community. They got them too. And you should also, I highly recommend that you all watch a documentary called Bastards of the Party. That might have been Byron Hurt. I can't remember if that was Byron Hurt or not. And there's a documentary called Bastards of the Party that talks about the rise of Bloods and Crips and how they really started out as political organizations that were defending Black people who were trying to go to work, who was getting their asses handed to them by white gangsters. Watch that documentary. You'll have a different appreciation, I think, for the organized street or organizations that we call gangs. But basically, in the white community, they got them too. And in 2019, according to Forbes magazine, I'm not saying this, I'm telling you what the magazine said. In 2019, Nick Fuentes ordered his followers to target the question and answer events that were held by conservatives who were aligned with Donald Trump, including these programs that Charlie Kirk was having. Now, you all may recall on the live show, I don't know if I said this in the podcast. I think we added it to the podcast, Amina. But in the live show, I said to y'all that there is this conversation happening about this woman named Laura Loomer. All these names are going to make sense in a minute. This woman named Laura Loomer, who is very much a part of white Christendom and white racism. And she's, I don't know what her position is. She don't have an official position in the White House. But for some reason, when she say things happen. When she say she wants something done, things happen. Look her up. I ain't going to talk a whole lot. I ain't putting my mouth on these people because I don't need them putting their mouths or their eyes on me. I'm just letting you all know what's happening in the background. But Laura Loomer last week, right before this young man, that man had that thing happen to him, she basically put out this whole long Twitter commentary about how Charlie Kirk was not really pro-Trump, about how Charlie Kirk was a charlatan who was stabbing Trump in the back. These are direct comments. I'm not making this up. These are direct comments. She talks about the fact that he was inviting people to talk with him who are anti-Trump. And here's one of the lines in the comment that she made. And this is a long post. This is a long post that she put on Twitter. She says, the honorable thing to do is to have a position and actually defend it to the death instead of flip-flopping. Charlie played both sides of the Iran issue on his show, as we all saw, because he wants to play both sides of the aisle. So she is kind of, using her words. You know, we tell the young people, use your words. She was using her words to highlight some things that made her very upset about Charlie Kirk right before that man had that thing happen to him. And so there are people who are like, wait a minute, hold on, what was happening here? And now you got Nick Fuentes, who leads all these other people who are part of the Groypers, who is like, if you are a part of me, I am not a part of you. I reject you if you are engaging in violence. But like, that's not what y'all was saying before that man had that thing had happened to him. And so because we have to have a deeper discussion, and Instagram, I'm about to flip my camera around so you all can see this clip because I want you all to see it and experience it as well. YouTube, you all, I'm going to share it with you all so that you all can hear it. I want you all to take a listen. I've used this woman's clips before on this show. Her name is Christina Talk ST, CHRISTINA TALKST. This is an Instagram clip, so Instagram, after we get off, you can pull the clip. You can go look at it. But I want you all to take a listen to this woman, and she is talking about some of the differences between what they doing on the right and how we engage with things here on the left. And I don't care how you define left. By left, I mean you ain't a white Christian nationalist who's like wholly trying to uphold the Republican Party, which is right now revealing itself as a white nationalist party. So YouTube, hang on, let me pull up this clip so you all can see it. Hold on, we have it for you. All right, Instagram, let me do this. Hold on, I got to switch this screen around. We got to get a better way. I need Instagram to be better integrated. All right, Amina, let's play it so that everybody can hear it. Instagram, y'all going to be able to see it. Let's make it happen.
Well. I'm just sitting out here on the veranda, baby, wasting some time before my flight. I'm going to see my auntie in California, thanks to all of you, and I really appreciate that. But I was pondering, baby. I was pondering the events that have occurred between the two sides, dear, over the last few weeks. I mean, hell, was it like 2 weeks ago? That little article came out on Wired that had left people at each other's throats. Yes, who was being paid dark money. And hell, we've been giving each other purity tests since the election cycle, dear. I mean, that far left part, you know, trying to purity test the rest of us, saying we don't have enough care, compassion, and empathy, dear. Policing how often we talk about our empathy for others. Isn't that strange? But we'll come at each other's throats, won't we? It's mostly debating, talking, and writing articles and posting videos about one another. But over there on the right, their purity tests for one another, well, I guess you could say that's on a whole nother level, baby. Because, I mean, they are policing who hates more. They're angry with each other and fighting with each other and taking each other out, baby, over who is more hateful and conservative. We're tearing each other apart because of love, and they're tearing each other apart because of hate. They are not like us. Even the worst of us, dear, is nothing in comparison to the worst of them. Hell, the worst of us don't even come close to being the best of them. But we kind of already knew this was going to happen when you get that many people in a room that hate each other. There's bound to be violence.
And boy, do they hate each other. All right, let's turn this around so y'all can see me again. Okay, here we go. Instagram, sorry, we don't usually do all this, but we're trying to make accommodations because I got some new Instagram friends, so we're trying to make sure y'all can experience the full thing. So what she's saying there is that while people on the left, whether you identify as a Democrat or not, I don't really care. But people on the left, like their thing is like, you don't care enough, you're not empathetic enough, your policies don't cover enough people. That's kind of like what people tear themselves apart over on that side of the aisle. But on the right side of the aisle, if you don't hate these people the way I want you to hate these people, you're not sufficiently hateful, and that means I might hate you enough that you might have to go. That's basically what's happening right here, and that leads me to a question that I want to pose for the Urban View audience. So if those of you who are on YouTube or Instagram, you're not going to be able to participate in the conversation that we're going to have in Urban View, but Urban View, we got to talk about this white man culture. We got to talk about this white male culture, because one of the things she says is basically that it could only end this way when all you do is focus on hatred. Now, you all may remember on the Urban View show a couple of years ago, was it God, it was just last year. The Washington Post did this whole article, this whole conversation about the loneliness of men, not just white men, men generally. And the reason they were talking about that was because there is a growing recognition that there is a real ideological shift happening between young men and young women. And a lot of men are experiencing this sort of loneliness. I want to say, first of all, thank you to the men who are voicing this, because one of the things we have realized as we talk about these topics on this show is that when you are a part of manhood in America, and frankly, in any real patriarchal society, there's only one emotion you're allowed to experience, and that's anger. Right, that's the only emotion that men are allowed to experience publicly and be safely angry. Now, if you're playing sports, we had Dr. Damas on a couple of weeks ago, and we had earlier this year in June, in honor of Father's Day, we had a whole black male town hall. We had Mayor Brandon Scott, who was a part of it. Dr. Hervé Damas, my husband Brian, was a part of it. Some Jordan Pierre, some young people. We had intergenerational black men talking about it. And one of the things that we realized and we were grappling with was this idea that anger is one of the only emotions that men in this society are allowed to experience. And quite frankly, the more, if you play sports, yeah, you can cry if your team lost, you can cry then, but you're not allowed as a man to maintain a sense of manhood and also be able to experience the fullness of your emotional body. Now, as women, we recognize that when you are not allowed to experience the fullness of your emotional body the way women can, we don't get a lot of benefits in a patriarchal society, but we are at least not expected to cut off our emotions. Well, unless you're black. There's always an asterisk. There's always an asterisk. But for men in this society, the inability to fully experience the fullness of your emotions, it means some things. It means some things that we got to unpack, because it is going to lead to more of this. If the only emotion you get to experience and still feel like you can claim manhood is anger, then everything you experience is going to be filtered through that anger. Now, I had a call last week with a gentleman by the name of Adam. Some of you have heard the call. Some of you only know about me because you listened to that call. And one of the things that one of my line sisters had asked me, she was like, do you think that he actually learned? And this is actually something my husband and I were talking about, because my husband was like, okay, yeah, I'm glad that the video, you were able to say it, but like, if he didn't learn, then you might just end up pissing off white men for no reason. And as I was going through some introspection, because when I sit behind this microphone, I have an obligation to you. We don't do that bullshit that people do on them other networks. In Urban View, like, we have integrity, we have transparency. We might say something wrong on the mic. What do? We correct it. Like, if the audience says, oh, wait, that's not the correct one, we gonna correct it, because our currency is our integrity. Like, right, if I'm a W-2 employee with a bunch of side hustles, right? I'm not independently wealthy. If I don't have the currency of integrity with my community, then what do I have? And one of the things that one of my line sisters said this weekend was like, do you think that he learned? And I wish that in that call, I had brought it back to the component where we have to create space for men to experience the fullness of their emotions. How much time we got left, Amina? 3 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes. So that men can experience the fullness of their emotions, because when you're not from a young age allowed to cry, allowed to feel sad, allowed to be worried, allowed to experience anything that is a normal human reaction without being called a punk ass bitch for being a little boy with tears in your eyes, then you also miss out on the very important skill set of learning what it is to have introspection, to think about what you have done and to feel shame without being motivated to violence, right? And so we have to have a conversation about white male culture. I said this last week, white mothers, what are you teaching your children that is causing them to identify the gun, which you give them freely, as the only way of solving their problems? What is happening, white fathers? What are you dealing with, and what unhealed things are you struggling with that would cause you to raise sons who believe that handheld weapons of mass destruction is what you need to be tying into in order to solve your issues? We're going to go to commercial break in just a minute, but I want us to be able to unpack this within, yes, on this conversation, on this show, but even within your households. Because a lot of times we as Black people, we think that we are immune to what they do in their communities. And we did this a lot with suicide. We were in denial about the fact that Black kids are experiencing death by suicide at an increasing rate. And we said, well, Black people don't do that. Oh, yeah, we do. We do. We don't talk about it because we shame, but we don't talk about it. I need us as Americans to begin having conversations or amplifying conversations where we are figuring out and unpacking what is the logical end result of telling an entire gender the only emotion you can experience is anger. And we're going to also connect you with these handheld weapons of mass destruction, which are the most extreme version and manifestation of that anger. That man lost his life because he wasn't hateful enough. That man lost his life because people who are to the right and more extreme of him did not think that he deserved to live another day on this earth because of their anger and inability to process their emotions at him. that's really the story of enslavement. That's really the story of all the things that we're navigating. And I need us to be aware of that. How much time we got left? We're going to commercial break. I need us to be aware of that, because if you're not aware of it, this is just a story about a pum pum and somebody who got met their maker in a very public space, and it could be left there. And I just think that if we're serious about gun violence, if we're serious about hopefully being able to establish some sort of multiracial democracy, because I ain't got no place for 44 million black people to go, although I actively encourage you to get your passports, even though tomorrow we're going to also talk about the fact that they're trying to end passports for people that they think are not politically aligned with them. That's a story for tomorrow. We'll get to it tomorrow, but have some introspective engagement on this topic in your spaces, in your private groups, in your communities, in your group chats. This ain't about that man losing his life because he was too controversial. This is way more than that. We got to go to commercial break. Urban View. We'll be right back after this. YouTube.